Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of JakeSick.com, a pop culture and entertainment news website. Now, before we get started, and if you're watching this on our YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And if you're listening to this on our audio version, please give us a 5-star review and also subscribe to the podcast. I am so happy because it's episode 160, and I can have no one better for this than one of my dearest friends and professional mentors in the entertainment industry. He is the host of Jonah and the Whale podcast, which is celebrating season 4. He's also the host of the American Influence Association podcast. So please help me welcome one of my favorite people, Josh Skinner, back to the podcast.
Jacob, it's so great to be back. I'm honored to be here for your 160th episode. That's pretty outstanding. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Josh. I cannot believe we reached 160. I never imagined when I started back in October 2019 that this would come, and now here we are in 2022, and now it's 160 episodes.
Man, congratulations. That's an achievement.
Thank you so much, Josh. I'm really appreciative. I want to say thank you for being one of the first guests and now coming back 3 years later.
Well, it's great to be back, and I always love talking with you, whether it's in front of the camera or in front of a microphone or just catching up on the phone.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, Josh, it has been 3 years since we last spoke. So, how have you grown as a podcast host and producer since our 2019 conversation?
You know what? I feel like every single year is a year of growth for me. When I go back to other seasons of whether it's Jonah and the Whale or American Influence or Real Talk, I can actually hear it in the way I ask questions or even sometimes even the way I use my voice. I feel like as each year passes, I feel more connected to my guests, and they help me see a side of myself that I didn't know always existed.
That's incredible. It's amazing how much guests can bring out of you, and it's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody has a story, and that's what the human connection is all about.
And I agree about the human connection. Now, the human connection was challenged greatly during the COVID-19 pandemic. During the first 2 years, it turned the world and the entertainment industry upside down. So, what were some of the challenges you faced during that time, and how did you overcome those obstacles?
Well, the story that comes to mind first would probably be the American Influencer Awards, and that podcast, because I was going from back-to-back interviews, and they were in-person interviews. We don't use video like you do, but I like to be in person. I like to be in the room. And suddenly we shifted gears to maybe 1 out of 10 interviews were in person, and the rest would be over the phone. So that's how it kind of altered the way I was doing podcasting for them. For Jonah and the Whale, we had a long break because I wanted to be in the room because these stories are all about triumph through tragedy. And I feel like although phone interviews are good, it wasn't the brand of what the show I wanted to produce and host would be. So I took a long break, over a year.
And I got to say, that long break paid off because you come back with some of the incredible stories. I want to talk about some of them if you don't mind.
Please.
All right, let's start with Joey Sasso. He won a circle, and he also talked about during not only his time on the circle, but also how his family had to deal with the keyboard warrior's aggression. But he also revealed how he had his underwater moment, which was his painful past. So, for those who did not turn into this podcast, what can you remember the most about your conversation with Joey?
Joey's interview went everywhere in a good way. It's just I thought he was taking this one direction and then he would spin it and he would share his heart in a completely different way that was very thought-provoking. I encourage you, if you haven't watched the first season of The Circle, definitely watch it and then listen to our interview. You can hear his passion for the game and also his passion for his family. What was really interesting about that story is that he started talking about his sobriety. And I thought he was so brave, and I still believe he was so brave to talk about that. But then halfway through him talking about his sobriety, he reveals for the first time that he was sexually abused as a child. And that was kind of a shock to everyone in the room. and his bravery just like skyrocketed. I couldn't believe that he trusted me and he trusted my audience with this information, but he knew that he could help someone or possibly thousands of people out there.
That's incredible. It's a powerful well, probably one of your more powerful episodes. But I gotta say, when I was listening to Clear Carney Wilson that conversation, it was a little bit more personal for you because this you talked about how her late talk show was an inspiration for you. You talked about and like talking to her about Playboy and the Wilson Phillips success and her battle with her weight problem. So, what did that moment with Carney mean to you?
Ooh, Carney is amazing. Carney's authentic and she's fearless and she's real. And, I was homeschooled growing up, and there was a lot of talk shows on the television from Ricky Lake to Jenny Jones to Maury Povich, but I didn't really connect with anything on television. And then Carney Wilson's show came out, and she was unfiltered. And she, like I mentioned, she was fearless. And there was something about who she was, not exactly the content of the show, it was just how she presented herself and how she knew the direction she wanted to be and the brand that she was, and that really made an impact on my life. There's a few people that I can really call, like, these stones of remembrance, if you will, where they mean so much to me and I will hold dearly to them, and she's one of them. When Carney was sharing her story with me, I thought it was fascinating that she had such global success and sold over 12 million albums, and then her underwater moment is that she lost all of her money and she ended up teaching needlepoint at a Studio City location, um, and she's making $500 a week. And it just kind of showed me that no matter how much success you have or no matter what people think you are, at the end of the day, we are just human beings and we're trying just to make a living and we're just trying to figure out what's next.
That's incredible. Speaking of incredible, you had another conversation with Kimberly Logan. I got to say, Kimberly is one of your signature guests. So, how did this conversation differ from all your previous conversations with Kimberly?
I felt this was her most revealing conversation. I mean, we've talked about American Idol in the past and her career. She's promoting an album. This is the first time. Sorry, my eye from the ring light. I'm not crying. There you go, Jacob. You just make me cry. It's like you're Barbara Walters. Um, Kimberly was very revealing in a personal way on this interview. For those who haven't listened, Kimberly literally laid on her couch for 4 years and she turned down every single job and she watched cartoons and she ordered pizza because she was physically exhausted from all of her time on American Idol, all the tours. She also had a stalker. So I knew this information, but I didn't know she'd ever want to, share it on a larger platform, and she couldn't wait. She knew that her story could help other people, and she's still promoting that episode, and we're still getting emails, and we're still getting text messages, and we're still getting people on social media saying, "Hey, that really resonates with me."
I gotta say, bravo to Kimberly for revealing all that because that's just not just mental exhaustion, but also having a stalker, and not to mention the fact about just doing cartoons and like having that ability to say, "This is what happened to me."
Yeah, I really look up to her because she exudes strength. And, although our stories may be different, yours, mine, our audience right now, but everyone can relate to pain because pain is universal and so is anxiety. And I think Kimberly did a great job in conveying her story with our audience.
Awesome. One episode I want to talk to you about is Crystal Lewis, and it feels like Crystal always is another one of your perennial guests.
Crystal Lewis, I've known since I was 9 years old. So we're going on 31 years. And I remember every one of her Grammy nominations. I remember when she won Female Vocalist of the Year at the Dove Awards and Album of the Year, and how she sold, over 1 million albums. Like I've been cheering her along, and she's been one of my cheerleaders in my career. And kind of like Kimberly, you know, she went through a lot of pain. She went through a pretty painful divorce, and she kind of rebooted her career from gospel music to jazz. And I think her story, man, heartache is relatable. And when you hear somebody who just shares this story of, literally feeling like she was underwater. And for those who may not know, the show's called Jonah and the Whale because sometimes in life situations seem bigger than us and it can feel like it can take us underwater and like we're drowning. So she felt like she literally was drowning inside and she had to learn to breathe again and be a single woman and start over at 50. And I really find her inspiring.
That's incredible. And speaking of inspiring, my friend, I don't know about you guys, but one of the biggest stories of 2021 for me was the Free Britney movement. And I was just so impressed that you and GloZell Green were in the middle of the Free Britney movement because that was just unbelievable. I know we've had conversations off camera, guys, and I was just keep hearing everything like of all this and like looking at Variety, looking at every social media coverage. So, what can you describe to my audience feeling of being in the crowd during those several crucial hearings about that helped Britney free her of her conservatorship?
One of my favorite interviews last year happened to be for American Influencer Real Talk, and it was with the Free Britney movement. Some of the founders, Leanne Simmons, Kevin Wu, and their interview really moved me, and I felt like I needed to get involved. So I went to 2 or 3 of the rallies, and I brought GloZell to the first one. And just to be there and to hear how I'll use the word again, passionate the fans are, and how people can be really passionate about their cause, it would give me like in Hawaii they call it chicken skin, like it gave me little goosebumps. And you could just hear that there was a movement going on. And then GloZell and I had our signs and we were out there screaming, "Free Britney now, free Britney now." And I felt like with every rally that I went to, the crowd just got bigger and bigger and the cause became greater. So it wasn't just about Britney's conservatorship. They had stories of other people that were stuck in the conservatorships of their own and their family members trying to get them released as well. So it was nice to be a part of history in a sense. It was nice to, share my love for Britney first and foremost. I have every Britney Spears album. This will show my age, but my senior year of high school, Baby One More Time was huge.
Incredible.
So, I've been a lifelong fan.
Same here. I have been a huge, to show my age as well. Britney Spears Baby One More Time came out during when I was in fourth grade at Indian Valley Elementary School. And I don't think I shared this yet, but I do have a Britney Spears story. And of all the time that I was a crew member of X Factor way back in the day, so I think it's been 10 years, but I accidentally saw her in her dressing room and I just went, and then had to dash out because I did not want to get fired.
Oh my gosh. Did she say hello?
I didn't say hello because the thing is, I was too scared. I was in my beginning of my career. I didn't want to have a black mark and get on my
Well,
name.
well, it's always easier to play it safe. So good job.
Yeah, but I feel like I should have said something because I met that darn father of hers.
Oh gosh. That's a whole other story. We could go on. We could
We
talk
could
about
go
that
on,
forever.
however, this is you. We are so grateful for Brittany. I hope that, and like, we're so happy, and we wish her all the best.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to read her book.
Same here. Same here. All right, let's get back on track because we got to talk about. In addition to Jonah and Whale, you also worked on the American Influencer Association podcast. I would love to talk about some of those conversations because those are pretty big names that you talked with.
Yeah, the theme of that podcast happens to be influencers and celebrities who are using their platform in a positive way. So I've been able to interview people like Amanda Cerny, who has over, 30 million followers, or Rebecca Zamalo, or people like Perez Hilton, Lance Bass, who else have I? Caitlyn Jenner, David Archuleta. There's like a nice mix between celebrities and influencers.
I got to talk about Perez Hilton because Perez Hilton and Nice don't always seem to get mixed up, and especially during his fiery days. Because believe me, when he was at his height of his powers, I started my career trying not to avoid him. But what was I surprised about Perez was like his when I was listening to your interview was he was honest.
He was, and I believe when you listen to the interview, you can see how people deserve a second chance and that we all have a time of redemption. And, when you know better, you do better. And I think, he shares a story about how Jennifer Aniston confronted him at a valet and just said, what you write hurts me. And Perez is like, I didn't think you were a real person. He was like, they're characters and like the story that he's telling. And I think, that and being called a bully and a bunch of other situations that he shares really changed him. And now he's a dad and he, tries to still tap dance around the world of entertainment and gossip. But I think he's doing a great job at it.
That's incredible. So Jeff Timmons, 25th anniversary, 98 Degrees. I can't believe that band's been around for over 27 years.
I know it's a long time. But they got their start. They were in Europe for a bit, and then they were out here. And Jeff Timmons was the founder of 98 Degrees. He's one of the nicest guys in Hollywood. He's always been a great friend of mine. He's appeared on 2 of the podcasts. He's on an upcoming episode of Jonah and the Whale. When this airs, that episode will already be out. And we have some other projects that we're working on. We've written a few songs together, and I can't say enough like how genuine and real and kind and full of love Jeff Timmons is. Anyone who knows him can see that he's a bright light.
He's been on the top of my list for conversation, so I would love to have a conversation. I'm so excited you get to work with him.
Yeah, it's great. It's an honor, to be honest with you. Actually, I believe the true definition of success is working with your friends. So it's always nice working with him.
Awesome. So we got to talk about Caitlyn Jenner because during the height of the pandemic, she appeared on the American Influencer Association podcast. So what were some of the lessons that you learned from this conversation with Caitlyn?
I knew Caitlyn before her transition, and it was really nice to hear where she was at today. And I was also at a different place in my life when we met over 10 years ago. So it was kind of nice to catch up and to see how we both evolved and just to hear how she found her true, authentic voice and how she's striving with that.
And that's incredible. And another incredible person that has had an incredible decade so far is David Archuleta. And you caught him before some big headline making news about him, like 2 years, I believe.
Yeah, he was getting ready for the tour, at one of his tours, and then the pandemic hit, and then he had to cancel it. And I believe he's had to cancel his tour twice. He is such a kind little soul, David Archuleta. Every time I hear his name or I speak with him, he just makes me smile and giggle. And hopefully, there's some other upcoming things that we're going to do together in the future.
He seems like a great guy. He seems like a fabulous guest. It's amazing about like how much he has grown. He took the Idol platform and transformed it into his own.
He did, and just like Kimberly, they just kind of ran with it, and I think they're no longer defined by American Idol. I believe it's the 20th anniversary of American Idol this year, so a lot of the artists that has had such a great career is that they used Idol as a platform, and then they created their own image.
That's amazing. And we can go on about Idol later, but however, this is all about you, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. So, have you thought about who are your dream conversations that you haven't had yet, and why do you think they would be great guests on either podcast?
It's hard. I know that's a question that people really would like an answer to, but I feel like I learned something new from every guest that I don't want to limit myself and say, if I could just have that one interview, because I've done that. And then it's not that the interview is disappointing. It's just like, oh, I already knew that fact about that celebrity, or I knew that fact about that person. But when I go in there with an open mind and I don't know a lot, I really feel like I grow the most in those interviews, and I hope that it can relate to my audience. Now, we were talking about Britney Spears, so obviously I'd love to know her underwater moment, or I'd love to do a famous politician. I think that would be interesting, just because I haven't had a politician on the show, or I haven't really had a sports icon on the show either. Well, I mean, Caitlyn Jenner is a sports icon, but like I haven't had a basketball player or Olympic medalist.
Those would all be great guests, and I'm glad that you have expanded your like your guest list and like to include those people because I'm starting to do that. And I know some of my friends who are in podcasting, they're only like sticking to one thing, and I'm like, you have to go beyond your limit.
It's true. I like that. You have to go beyond your limits because when you are pushed out of your comfort zone, you become a sponge. You start learning everything because it's that moment of like, okay, what's next and what am I going to do? And I used to be afraid of those moments, but now I live for them.
Me too, me too. So we got to talk about, as always, social media. We got to talk about. So, what have been some of your favorite apps that you use?
I love, love, love Instagram and I love Twitter. I need to be better at both of them because I get nervous in posting. I know that sounds really weird, but before I post on Twitter or I post on Instagram, I always get a little nervous. Not that I'm worried about likes or anything. It's just like it's sharing a little bit of part of my day or sharing a part of my family or my life. But I use those the most. I try to keep Twitter. Um, Mostly inspiring. So like, inspirational quotes or, just to remind people that, delay is not denial, or I hope that they have a good morning. And then with Instagram, I obviously like to promote whatever I'm working on in a nice, fun way and also share photos of my Shiba Inu named Beck. He's 15 years old. And just some behind the scenes photos of stuff that I'm working on. Um, but yeah, Jacob, what do you prefer?
I gotta say, I use Facebook and Instagram and Twitter just to promote all of my stuff because the thing is, I rather, as much as I love to have Andy Cohen and Howard Stern, and Simon Cowell. I'm like, you do not want to go there. I want to have a career, follow the rule book of David Letterman, Barbara Walters, and Regis, and make sure that you are at the career and like have at least 40 to 50-year career.
That's a really great advice.
Yeah, so where okay, so as we gotta round out this conversation. So where can they download your podcasts? And also, more importantly, where on Instagram and Twitter can they find you?
Well, first, American Influencer Real Talk Podcast and Jonah and the Whale are available on all podcast platforms. If you want to look at all the episodes at one time, you can go to jonahandthewhale.show. We currently have 4 seasons out there, and by the time you watch this, all 9 episodes of the new season will be released. So definitely check it out. And I would love for you to listen to the episodes that we talked about today because Joey Sasso is a very strong episode, and so is Kimberly Locke. And Carney Wilson. I mean, Carney Wilson, we talk about everything. We talk about, like you mentioned, even Playboy magazine.
That's incredible. So, guys, if you missed an episode of the Jake Steak with Jacob Elyachar podcast, visit our Apple Podcasts, Deezer, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Spotify, and Spreaker channels. It's Jake Steak with Jacob Elyachar podcast, JACOBELYACHAR, JACOBELYACHAR. Are you on social media? Because I'm on social media too. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. And Josh, can you believe it? In August, it's 11 years that Jake's Take has been up on the web.
Well, congratulations. I can't wait to share this on my Twitter. Which, by the way, is at Josh Skinner.
Absolutely. I was like saying,
Yeah.
wait a minute, we need something about it, Josh.
my Instagram is with Josh Skinner. So with Josh Skinner Instagram, at Josh Skinner Twitter, and I'll be reposting all this. So I can't wait to share this with the world, Jacob.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, just to let you know, if you missed all my other stuff with Josh, it's on jakes-take.com. So make sure you guys get that. Now, guys, if you're financially able to, please consider heading to the PayPal page. Help keep Jake's Take and my platform up and running. I'm the guy that does everything. I'm a one-man band, and I would love to have all your support if you're financially able to. Thank you so much. But if you're not, I totally understand. And a very strong alternative is to subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to YouTube, and follow me on social media. I'll happily follow you guys back. Josh, thank you so much for an incredible conversation, and I'm very grateful for our friendship, and thank you so much for being part of the 160th milestone episode.
Thank you for having me. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Josh. And until next time, everybody, thank you so much for listening. And thank you so much for watching. And have a great one. Bye, everybody.